Hello humans, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, you shape and polish gemstones using Dremel. If that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing. Today we're going to be working on this piece of coober peady Australian opal, and there is a bit of a thin color bar going on, but I'm very hopeful that I will be able to get a good stone out of this, even with that obstacle that we have to get through. And when we measure it, it is 14 millimeters by 10 millimeters by 6 millimeters thick and 3 on the thinner end. When we shine it with a flashlight, you can see that there is dirt running through it, so hopefully that dirt won't end up in the color bar of the stone, but we will see. And you can really see how thin this color bar is and how it tapers out at one end. When we measure it, the starting weight of the stone is 4.13 carats. So if you guys want to see how this opal is shaped and polished into a beautiful jewel, keep on watching. So starting out here, I am going to be shaping it with my 110 grit diamond sintered bit that I got from Suva Lapidary. And I started by kind of grinding down the potch to try to expose the color, and you can see here the color exposed, but it still has a little bit of potch going through it, so I'm going to continue taking that down there. And while I was working on this, I noticed that there was a second color bar a little bit lower down that actually had more color underneath it. So instead of going with a just full crested teardrop kind of shape that I was originally planning on going for, I ended up taking it down a step to chase that color bar, so it has like a bit of an uneven face, but just to expose the most color possible. And you can see here we've got a great rainbowy patch on the upper part, but the lower part has this really nice red mossy pattern, so I really want to save both of them if I can. And there's still just a little bit of potch in the face of it, so I was very carefully and checking it many times, taking down just the edge of where that potch is going into the color, because that rainbow color bar is really beautiful, but I want to be sure that I am getting the full impact of the color bar. And when you are doing something like this, it's really important to take the stone on the bit for just a couple seconds and then keep looking at it, and then go for it, keep looking at it, be very careful and very cautious, because the bit will sometimes take it down more than you would like it to. But once I got the color bar exposed as much as I was comfortable with, I started shaping the outer edges of the stone, taking down kind of the sharp points that were going on, so that I ended up with a nice kind of stepped teardrop shape. So some of the best color of the stone was in one of the points of the teardrop, so I was careful to kind of work on that and make sure that I didn't take that away too much. So this is a piece of the footage when I had fully exposed the color bar, but this is not quite when I had shaped it, as you guys saw. But moving on to the nova points here, I went around the edges first to get the edges polished, and when I was polishing the faces of this stone, I kind of took it along the upper step and then moved it through the transitioning point to kind of move back and forth and kind of merge that together as much as I felt like was alright. And I didn't end up taking out all the dirt from the very back of this stone, because I wanted to have a little bit of thickness going on. I wanted to try to keep it 3 millimeters if I could, but if I'd taken down all of the dirt in the back, I definitely would have only ended up with a 1 millimeter thick stone, which is really only ideal if you're trying to make a doublet, which I didn't really want to try to make this into a doublet since it was and is so opaque. So moving through the Nova points, you can grind off too much of that color bar if you're not careful. So I was kind of grinding it on the Nova point, taking it off, dipping it in the water, drying it, and making sure that I didn't grind too much of the color bar away, and making sure that I did get all of the scratches out, because it is a very fine line between too much and just enough. So this is it when it's shaped and polished with the Nova points. And at this point, before I had polished it fully, it was 1.48 carats. So that's something to keep in mind as I'm going on through the diamond lapidary paste felt tips here, and I'm using a wax-based diamond lapidary paste that I got off Etsy from Kent's Supply. And I really do enjoy this lapidary paste. And I do need to get some new felt tips, but I did get these felt tips off Amazon. They were the cheapest ones available at the time. So if you're going to go out and buy felt tips for lapidary purposes, you don't have to shell out too much, and they do wear down. You can also go for cerium oxide after these, or instead of some of the later grits of these, because cerium oxide will give you a different sort of a polish. And I like the lapidary pastes because I feel like I get a lot of control, and that's really the biggest reason why, because when I use these, I can use them on Ethiopian opal, which Ethiopian opal doesn't fare like super well in my experience with cerium oxide, since the cerium oxide has water in it, and Ethiopian opals will absorb the water, but with Australian opal it's actually really preferred. So definitely recommend doing that. I just don't for some reason. I do like the look of it. I have some, I just don't. But you can dop your opal before you go through the polishing pastes, and I highly recommend it, because as you're going through the polishing pastes, it will get slicker and you will drop it multiple times. I kind of lay sheets around on things in my general vicinity where it could fly and drop into, so that it doesn't, you know, like fall into a cup of water or something, or in the trash, and I just never find it, because that's happened to me before. So yeah, something to keep in mind as you're going through the polishing pastes. But this is what the finished stone looks like, guys, and you can see a beautiful ribbon pattern on the upper step of it, and a really nice mossy red pattern on the lower step. When we weigh it out, the finished weight of the stone is 1.46 carats, and when we measure it, it is 12 tall ways, 9 millimeters wide ways, and 2 millimeters tall at its tallest point. So when we do the math, we ended up losing more than half of it, a total of 2.67 carats. But when you consider all the potch that we ground away, I think that is not too much of a loss. The ribbon pattern on the upper step of the opal is really spectacular. I've not shaped many Australian opals in my day, but I'm just blown away with that awesome rainbow ribbon pattern right there. And I think that I made the right decision by exposing the mossy pattern on the lower step. I think that this will make a really nice pendant or ring, whatever somebody wants to do with it. Really full spectrum of color, full rainbow on that upper tile, and it really beams at you. I want to say that it's like a a 3 on the brightness scale. Like, I feel like it could be a lot brighter, but the mossy pattern is definitely not quite as bright, but, you know, color nonetheless. If I would have just went with the ribbon pattern, it would have ended up being a lot smaller of a stone. So overall, I really couldn't be happier with this piece, and I think it'll make a beautiful piece of jewelry. Thank you guys for watching this far. If you have continued to watch to this point, I would appreciate it if you would like the video. Subscribe to my channel. Since you're here, you know, you may as well. Leave a comment down below if you have anything to say, and also share this with a friend if you have a friend to share it with. Turn on notifications for future videos, and I'll see you guys next time I post. Later.